Namaste, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime. I'm Gautam Roy. This is the show where over the course of 1 hour we bring you all the latest updates from the country and the world from, well, different spheres of news as well, whether it be the international news, national news or business, even sports. And we'll get to the latest right now about what's happening with the US election process, and also it could be an inflection point as far as the country's battle against COVID-19 is concerned, because that is something that is also emerging today itself. First, the big news. India once again exposes 5 big lies of Pakistan, which it claimed to have made during Monday's UNSC session where no non-member was invited. Pakistan was slammed for masquerading itself as the victim of terrorism when sanctioned terrorists continue to operate from its soil against India. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari lays foundation stone of 45 highway projects in Madhya Pradesh. 1,361-kilometer long road projects will pave the way for development in the state with enhanced connectivity and economic growth. Over 60 people rescued in Mahad building collapse in Maharashtra. 3 deaths recorded so far. Few people are still feared to be trapped inside the rubble. FIR filed against the builder. Rescue operations are ongoing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over the loss of lives to bereaved families. The flood situation in Bihar remains grim as over 83 lakh people in 16 districts remain affected. Sharda and Saryu flowing above the danger mark in Uttar Pradesh. Heavy rains inundate low-lying areas in Gujarat as well. Met Department issues flash flood warning for Saurashtra Kutch region of Gujarat and South Rajasthan. India records highest ever single-day COVID recoveries of 66,550 in the last 24 hours. This is more than the new fresh cases as well. The recoveries total number also crosses 24 lakh mark. Over 100% increase in recovered cases in the last 25 days. Total tests conducted go beyond 3.68 crores. Fatality rate also drops further to 1.84%. Global COVID-19 numbers cross the 2 crore 38 lakh mark. WHO chief urges countries to join forces in the vaccine plan. There could be more trouble for Prashant Bhushan even as the Supreme Court is set to pronounce the quantum of punishment in his current ongoing contempt of court case. Another 2009 criminal contempt case has been referred by a 3-judge top court bench to the Chief Justice to decide whether this matter will be heard further by a 5-judge bench. And in international news, Republicans officially re-nominate US President Donald Trump as the party's presidential nominee. Mike Pence to join Trump in election as the vice presidential candidate. And let's straight away turn to the big news of the hour. Well, India has hit out at Pakistan for its litany of lies at the United Nations after Islamabad's UN envoy claimed to have given a statement in a Security Council session not open to non-council members and said that the biggest sponsor of cross-border terrorism against it now tries to masquerade itself as a victim of terrorism. Calling out Pakistan's lie that it has been a target of cross-border terrorism for decades, India said a lie repeated 100 times will not become truth. The biggest sponsor of cross-border terrorism against India now tries to masquerade itself as a victim of terrorism by India. India's permanent mission to the UN said on Monday, and if you turn over here to how we have really put it across for you in terms of all of Pakistan's lies that India has completely destroyed and set aside. Just take a look at how that has been done. Take a look at how India has completely destroyed Pakistan's claims. First up, what has India said? Well, it's called out Pakistan's 5 lies. 5 lies peddled by Pakistan at the United Nations have been completely exposed. Pakistan's mission at the UN claimed that the remarks were made by its permanent representative at the UNSC, a session that was about terrorism as well. India clearly said that it fails to understand where Pakistan's permanent representative made this particular statement, because as India went on to further say that as far as this claim is concerned, the Security Council session today was not open to non-members of the UNSC. So none of those members, a picture was also put out by the German permanent mission there, it didn't have Pakistan's representative. Now Pakistan's lie number 1. Pakistan claimed we have been target of cross-border terrorism for decades. That's what Pakistan claimed in that statement that was never made at the UNSC. But the truth is Pakistan's biggest sponsor of cross-border terrorism against India. Everyone the world over knows that. Further on, many sanctioned terrorists and entities continue to operate as far as Pakistan is concerned, right inside Pakistan with impunity. No one really stops them and they continue to operate and target India. What is truth again? Well, Pakistan's Prime Minister admitted to the presence of 40 to 50,000 terrorists in his country, in Pakistan, back in 2019, which is last year at the UN General Assembly itself. So that's how blatantly Pakistan is lying. And that's just lie number 1. Lie number 2, Pakistan decimated Al-Qaeda from the region. That's what Pakistan would have the world believe. But nothing is further from the truth, as was pointed out by India. If you look at what the truth is, well, Osama bin Laden was hiding in Pakistan in plain sight under the Pakistani army's nose, and further on, US forces, it was the US forces that got to Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad. Again, Pakistan had no clue about it. Pakistan's Prime Minister, in fact, referred to Osama bin Laden as a martyr. So there again, Pakistan lying through its teeth. Lie number 3, laughable claim, that's what India has called it, laughable claim that India has hired terrorists as mercenaries to hit Pakistan. Again, nothing could be further from the truth, which is what India has said. Pakistan is a known sponsor of cross-border terrorism. Further on, India has also said that as far as the entire claim about being targeted by terrorists is concerned, well, Pakistan has made the world suffer due to its actions as far as sponsoring terrorism is concerned. Further on, more lies that have been exposed. Lie number 4, Indians in 1267 sanctions list. That's the UN's list of sanctioned individuals as well as entities. Pakistan is claiming that there are Indians in that list. Again, this is a claim that just does not stand up to any kind of scrutiny, even the most cursory scrutiny. 1267 sanctions list is public. That is what the truth is. Anybody can access it and check whether any Indians are there or not. World can see none of the individuals mentioned are in that list. So India has completely demolished that claim made by Pakistan as well. Also, 1267 committee works on the basis of evidence and not just based on any sort of information or conjecture that Pakistan would like to throw out to the world so that anybody would go for it and latch onto it. And Pakistan's lie number 5, ridiculous assertions about internal affairs of India. That's what India has said, because Pakistan keeps on claiming one thing or the other, especially about the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. The truth, India has very clearly said, minority population in Pakistan is the one that has seen a drop in numbers, drastic drop through the decades since 1947. Minorities are just about 3% of the Pakistani population now. At the time of partition, it was something else entirely. And further on, if you look at what is happening in Pakistan, there's nothing short of systemic cleansing that is going on in the country where the minorities in that country are concerned. If you talk about the Sikhs, if you talk about other communities, Balochis, it's all been happening, and nothing short of systemic cleansing is what really comes across in Pakistan, where the position of minorities is concerned. And further on, if you look at the truth, India's sovereign actions in Jammu and Kashmir are for the welfare of people, not as Pakistan has been trying to portray it. So all these lies of Pakistan have been completely exposed by India. And further on, massive protests and a torch rally was also held in Muzaffarabad city of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That was yesterday night to oppose the mega dams to be constructed by Chinese firms on Neelam Jhelum River. The protesters hailing from Darya Bachao, Muzaffarabad Bachao Committee chanted slogans like Neelam Jhelum Behne Do, Hame Zinda Rehne Do. That is, let the Neelam and Jhelum rivers flow and let us live. This rally was attended by over 1,000 people from the city and other parts of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Recently, Pakistan and China signed agreements to construct Azad Patan and Kohla hydropower projects in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and these people have taken to the streets to protest against this project. Earlier also, a massive protest rally was held in the Diyal city of POK against the load shedding and human rights violations. The rally was attended by thousands of protesters, and it was called by Sadai Haq Party, which has accused Islamabad of regular power cuts, high tariffs, corruption and police brutality against civil rights campaigners. Protesters also condemned the arrest and torture of Tanveer Ahmed, a journalist and activist arrested after he removed Pakistan's flag from a popular public place in POK on the 21st of August. Well, joining us live to talk about this even further is my colleague Amritpal Singh. We're also joined by former senior diplomat Dilip Sinha. First to you, Amrit, just tell us, how did this entire sequence of events really come about? How could Pakistan make such a claim that can be so easily exposed as just a litany of lies?
Well, that's what's happened. Pakistan's permanent representative to the UN in almost a juvenile post posted on their social media handles, both Facebook and Twitter, claimed that they had made a speech to the United Nations Security Council where they had, shown India's complicity. But the fact of the matter remains that Pakistan was not a part of that online, discussion which happened on terrorism. As you rightly said, that the German permanent representative did post a picture where Pakistan was not even a part of that online meeting, where Pakistan claims to have spoken about terrorism. When the Indian mission got to know about it, they saw the social media handles. They put it out and called out Pakistan for its blatant lie, and also exposed point by point what Pakistan claims that they've made a speech to the United Nations. The points that you've listed out, where they've said that we are victims of terrorism. India has called out that how they are, overtly and covertly supporting terrorism. Their own Prime Minister Imran Khan, has admitted in the past that 40,000 to 50,000 terrorists operate there. We know just a few days back they had come up, their own Ministry of Interior had come up with the SRO, statutory regulatory order, which said 88 individuals and entities operating out of Pakistan had terrorist links, and then they were, clamping down on them, which was seen as trying to avoid getting into the FATF blacklisting. But the very next day they said, well, we haven't claimed that Dawood Ibrahim is in Pakistan. It is an old list. So their obfuscation basically showed that how they've been lying on the issue of terrorism.
Yes.
They have not been serious about fighting the war against terror, even while they claim to be victims of it and claim that they do fight that war. So point by point, India has rebutted that fake speech that Pakistan has put out, or their envoy has put out, saying that it was made to the UNSC. He says that there is an Indian syndicate that operates and which assists the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and the Jamaat-ul-Ahrar. Whereas the fact of the matter is that, as India said, that the 1267 Sanctions Committee list is for everybody to see.
Yes, certainly.
It is
let me bring in Dilip Sinha as well, because Dilip Sinha, what does this tell us about Pakistan, that it is resorting to such measures that can easily be exposed as a complete falsification of facts? Does it show that Pakistan is somehow desperate to draw attention to a particular issue, and at the same time also desperate to perhaps draw attention away from certain things that have been happening within Pakistan?
Yes, it is a problem that Pakistan faces today, not only domestically because of various problems inside the country, but also on the external front because of its problems that it's facing with Saudi Arabia. Its relations with Saudi Arabia has become very strained, and this was one of the strongest relationships that Pakistan has had in the past. And now Pakistan is trying to balance its relations with Saudi Arabia by moving on to China. And in this situation, Pakistan is desperate to look for some scapegoat, and the perpetual and the perennial scapegoat for Pakistan is India, because that's the one place where the Pakistani government can get everybody to rally behind it. There have been reports of differences between Bajwa and the army chief and the prime minister. Pakistan has had internal problems as well. You would have mentioned about the media. The head of the owner of the largest media group in Pakistan, which is the Dawn Jung Group, is Mir Shakilur Rahman, who's been arrested for since March this year.
Right.
And he's not been released. The relations with Saudi Arabia were such that when the army chief went to Saudi Arabia, he wasn't able to meet the crown prince there and had to come back empty-handed. And then the foreign minister, who was threatening to split the OIC, went over to China to claim some kind of support from the country. So Pakistan is very good at peddling lies, and it believes that as long as it can peddle lies, and as long as some of its supporters like China and perhaps Turkey believe in those lies, it can get away with it. And in any case, it can peddle those lies to its own people. But Pakistan is also good at handling contradiction within its own statements. For example, what your other expert mentioned just now about Pakistan's statement on Dawood Ibrahim, where one day they gave one list to the FATF, and then the other day denied that he is in Karachi when they themselves gave the address of the place where he lives. So these kinds of contradictions have occurred in the past, and Pakistan has been quite good at trying to obfuscate these in the conviction that at least its own people will keep believing it even if nobody else does.
Right. But why make such claims, especially of having made a statement in a session in the UN SC, where Pakistan clearly did not even have representation? Wouldn't that really show how desperate Pakistan is to really peddle its lies?
Yes, but then you see, nobody believes Pakistan these days. Now, Pakistan, when it says that there are Indian nationals in the 1267 list, now the 1267 list is available on the net. Anybody can go to the net and on the internet and take a look at the list of the names. And most of the largest number of terrorists listed under the 1267 list belong to organizations based in Pakistan, or they live in Pakistan, or they have been living in Pakistan when last reported. So this is Pakistan for you. Pakistan was the country that protected Osama bin Laden at its army base within 100 meters of its National Defense Academy. And yet, when he was killed over there, Pakistan denied any knowledge of the man. So these are things that have been there in Pakistan's history all through. Pakistan has managed to get away with these all through these years, and it believes that it can get away with this even now.
Right. And, in terms of what we've seen in different parts of Pakistan, especially in POK, the protests that are taking place related to projects that are being funded by China as well. Amrit, if I could ask you, this kind of situation with Pakistan where it is caught on the wrong foot trying to peddle lies, to what extent does that embarrass China? Would China also have concerns about such activities of Pakistan?
Gautam, I'm sorry I lost your audio. Could you please repeat your question?
Just wanted to ask you in terms of what sort of an impression would that leave, with Pakistan's friends as such, Pakistan's, iron brother China. On one hand, there are protests in POK, and on the other, Pakistan gets completely wrong-footed at this world body, at this premier world body.
Well, I think friends always remain friends no matter what you do. What Pakistan has done is highly embarrassing, and as Ambassador Sinha said, that nobody in the world believes what Pakistan does. But it will be naive for us to believe, or for India or anybody else in the world to believe that China will stop supporting Pakistan, because China has vested interests in Pakistan, both economic and strategic. More strategic than economic, but yes, economic is a part of the strategic, dimension there. No matter what Pakistan does, China will support it. We've seen statements coming out of when their foreign ministers met for the strategic meet. Also, Pakistan, the United States needs Pakistan in Afghanistan. So that kind of policy will go on, but the fact of the matter remains that the world is no longer buying Pakistan's narrative on terrorism. What is coming out of Pakistan is a very, very desperate attempt to try and paint itself as a victim of terrorism, which nobody in the world is believing. Even if Pakistan is indeed a victim of terrorism, you cannot, hunt with the hounds and run with the hare. So that's what the world believes. Pakistan is complicit in supporting terrorism. There are terrorists that operate from its soil. We know the FATF pressure on Pakistan. Yes. It is already in the grey list. It could go to the blacklist. It's making these measures or seemingly acting against terrorism, while the world realizes that these are not real measures. Pakistan is not serious about
these wild claims would not just be an embarrassment, they will act to the detriment of the long-term interest of not just Pakistan, Ambassador Sinha, but also of China, because if Pakistan is perceived in such a manner, and if China keeps on backing it, pretty soon it will be perceived to be in the same boat as Pakistan.
Oh, China has a very clear policy in Pakistan. China is an expansionist power. China wants a direct route across to the Arabian Sea, and China is interested in CPEC. And China has a clear policy of trying to acquire as much stranglehold on a country as possible to ensure that its interests are protected. For example, you have Chinese troops in what are called the Gilgit-Baltistan area. They live in virtual cantonments because they are scared of the local population, but they are there in very large numbers. And China is continuously giving loans to Pakistan so that Pakistan falls in a debt trap where a lot of its real estate will come under China's control. China will now go ahead and try to build this Kohala Dam in POK. And I'm happy that the people of POK have finally realized that these dams that are flooding their own territory is actually to their detriment. And they're finally protesting against that. But China's policy in this is absolutely clear. China treats Pakistan as a piece of real estate, which is important to it for its own connectivity to Gwadar port, and therefore will do anything possible to expand its control over Pakistan.
Right, but if these protests gain strength, China will find the task of getting hold of what it wants from Pakistan all the more uphill, and at the same time Pakistan will continue to embarrass itself at different international fora, which will act to the detriment of perhaps long-term interests of any kind, any strategic or any other as well, if these things keep going on the way they have. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Ambassador Sinha, as well as Amritpal Singh. Let's now talk about our developing story as well, one that is taking shape as we speak. Well, a rift has been widening in the Congress, and it's not just about a post but about the country as well. That's what Kapil Sibal, senior Congress leader, has tweeted today after what happened at the CWC yesterday. Another intriguing tweet is by Sanjay Jha, who's a suspended Congress former spokesperson, who has said that this is the end of the beginning. Very cryptic, but these are the people who've been seeking an overhaul in the Congress. Kapil Sibal, on one hand, who was one of the signatories as well of that letter that was sent to the interim president Sonia Gandhi, who remains interim president even today after the CWC meet, which deliberated as to what to do about the letter that 23 senior leaders had written to Sonia Gandhi. But the outcome was, well, not much apart from the fact, without a deadline, saying that a meeting of the Congress, the entire general body, should be called, and then perhaps the election should take place for the president's post. A marathon meeting of the party's top decision-making body, the CWC, had taken place yesterday, and these are the images from that, because this was not an in-person meeting. It was on WebEx, and that's what was decided, that the AICC session will be convened within, say, a period of 6 months, and all such issues must be raised within the party in the interest of propriety and discipline, and matters should not be taken out into the public. Meanwhile, Sanjay Jha, as I was referring to, has also tweeted saying this is the end, just the end of the beginning. The former Congress spokesperson, who has been suspended from the party last month with immediate effect for anti-party activities and breach of discipline, has tweeted this out. He had earlier claimed that over 100 party leaders have signed the letter which Sonia Gandhi received, demanding complete overhaul of the grand old party. Let's now listen in to what Sanjay Jha had to say about his tweet as well. Okay, we're moving on for the moment, and let's talk about the other updates that have been coming around from the entire country. If we move on further, we will get to the latest as far as the situation in the Congress is concerned. Listen in.
Yesterday's meeting unfortunately did not lay down a clear timetable as to when will the elections actually happen for the Congress president, for the Congress Working Committee, for the Congress Parliamentary Party. The Congress needs to become transparent, open, and ultimately realize its full potential. We believe that until these things happen, we need to pursue the reforms within the party. Therefore, what happened yesterday is only the end of the beginning. There is still a long way to go.
And we got more reactions as well. PC Chako, senior Congress leader, has also reacted. Listen in.
I personally feel that there are something to be corrected in the leadership of the party, but that should not have been in the form of a letter. And the people who wrote a letter, their views I share, but the way they behaved, that means they wrote a letter, they released that letter on the previous day of the working committee, that created a controversy. All of them who attend the working committee, there are 52 members in the working committee. I am one among them. I am a permanent member of the working committee. Yesterday, I did not get an invitation. I sent a message to Congress person that I did not get an invitation. Otherwise, I would have made my opinion in the committee. And writing a letter and releasing the letter to the media on the previous day of the working committee is creating a controversy. Senior people should not have done that. I think very senior people, so-called senior people, are involved in this. I personally feel that Congress Constitution clearly says that there has to be an All India Congress Committee meeting every year. There has to be a plenary session once in every 2 or 3 years. These are all the constitutional obligations of a party. That is not happening now.
So what happened at the CWC meeting yesterday, a reiteration of the fact that Sonia Gandhi will remain interim president, was the aftermath of that letter being written. But there seems to be an aftermath to the aftermath as well, judging from the kind of statements that are being made today as well from one can say, different factions of the Congress. What's really happening? What can we expect in the coming days? A.B. Singh, my colleague, joins us for more on this. What do you think is brewing in the Congress right now? Because on the one hand, you have people like Sanjay Jha and Kapil Sibal making their own cryptic statements and sending out their tweets, and then you still have this section of leaders who feel what the people who signed the letter did was wrong, and they seem to be suggesting that there should be some consequences for that.
बिल्कुल गौतम, ये कांग्रेस के भीतर की बेचैनी है और ये बेचैनी आज नहीं तो कल बाहर आनी ही थी और किसी न किसी को आगे आना ही पड़ता। और वो गुलाम नबी आजाद के नेतृत्व में जिस तरह से 23 नेताओं ने पत्र लिखा, ये अभी शुरुआत भर है। अभी इसमें और भी बहुत कुछ आना है। इसको इस लिहाज से हम समझ सकते हैं क्योंकि कल सीडब्ल्यूसी की बैठक के बाद रात में गुलाम नबी आजाद के घर पर कपिल सिब्बल, शशि थरूर, मनीष तिवारी सहित कुल 9 नेता एक बार फिर से बैठे थे। उन्होंने बैठक की। हालांकि जो उन्होंने सोर्सेस के जरिए जो बात हुई है और कुछ मीडिया पर्सन जो बात हुई है, उन्होंने कल की जो सोनिया गांधी की पोस्टरिंग थी उस पर उन्होंने संतोष जताया और ये कहा है कि सोनिया गांधी ने जो कहा है वो बिल्कुल सही कहा है, लेकिन उनका जो सवाल है वो अभी भी बरकरार है कि जो संगठन की स्थिति है, जो शीर्ष नेतृत्व की स्थिति है, वो कहाँ जाएगी। कल सीडब्ल्यूसी की बैठक में ये एक बार फिर से फैसला लिया गया। सोनिया गांधी को अधिकृत किया गया और राहुल गांधी को एक बार फिर से अध्यक्ष बनाए जाने की पूरे सीडब्ल्यूसी में मांग की गई। तो पिछले कई सीडब्ल्यूसी में यही होता आ रहा है, हम लोग इसको देखते आ रहे हैं। और अधिवेशन का भी ये कहा गया है कि अधिवेशन के बाद अध्यक्ष का चुनाव होगा। अधिवेशन में ही चुनाव होता है, ये कांग्रेस की का संविधान कहता है, लेकिन अधिवेशन बुलाया नहीं जा रहा है। हालांकि कोरोना काल है, उसके बाद अधिवेशन बुलाया जाएगा। तो इसके हिसाब से हम माने तो 6 महीने का वक्त लगना है कम से कम। उसके बाद नया अध्यक्ष कांग्रेस को मिलेगा। अब इन 6 महीनों के भीतर में किस तरह से पार्टी आगे बढ़ेगी, किस तरह से उसका काम होगा, ये अभी स्पष्ट नहीं है। हालांकि ये बात बताई गई है कि एक कमेटी बनाई जाएगी और वो कमेटी सोनिया गांधी को सलाह देगी और उसके बाद जो पार्टी की गतिविधियां चलाई जाएंगी। ऐसा एक बार और हो चुका है 2012 के बाद, जब सोनिया गांधी की तबीयत एक बार खराब हुई थी तो एक कमेटी बनाई गई थी और वो कमेटी सोनिया गांधी को सलाह देकर काम करती थी। लेकिन वो कितना लोगों के जो अंदर की बात है, जो लोगों के नेताओं के सवाल है, वो किस तरह से हल कर पाएगी। और सबसे बड़ी बात है, जमीनी स्तर पर भी ये बात हो रही है। गौतम, नेता तो ये बात कह रहे हैं, लेकिन जनता के बीच में भी ये बात हो रही है कि तमाम स्थितियों के बावजूद कांग्रेस कहीं पर एक्टिव नहीं दिख रही है और जो लोगों की बातें हैं, लोगों के मुद्दे हैं, वो उस तरह से नहीं लेकर आ पा रही है। और इस कमी को जनता भी समझ रही है और नेता भी समझ रहे हैं और यही बेचैनी का सबसे बड़ा कारण है।
जी बिल्कुल। तो क्योंकि कोई समय सीमा नहीं है कि कब तक ये सेशन बुलाया जाएगा AICC का, और चुनाव के बारे में तो अभी कुछ कहा ही नहीं जा सकता, अध्यक्ष पद के चुनाव के बारे में, और बाकी पद भी बदलने होंगे। उसे लेकर मांग ये भी थी कि पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड भी कन्वीन किया जाए। ये सब अगर अभी नहीं हो रहा है, इसकी कोई समय सीमा भी नहीं है, तो कब तक इस तरह की अनिश्चितता की स्थिति चलती रहेगी? कुछ न कुछ तो होना एक तरह से अब लाजमी हो गया है, जिस तरह की परिस्थितियां बनी खासकर CWC में। तो क्या लगता है पहल किस तरफ से होगी? क्या जो पार्टी का शीर्ष नेतृत्व है वो कुछ कार्रवाई करेगा कि ये जो लोग जिन्होंने चिट्ठी लिखी थी उनकी तरफ से कुछ हो सकता है? AB
देखिए, कल CWC की मीटिंग में जिस तरह से राहुल गांधी ने अपने कड़े और सख्त तेवर दिखाए थे, उससे ये बात तो साफ है कि जो ये कुछ हुआ है और जो लेटर लिखा गया और लेटर को जो मीडिया में लाया गया, उसको लेकर राहुल गांधी निश्चित तौर पर नाराज हैं। और सोनिया गांधी ने हालांकि अपने जो लास्ट दिमाग था उसमें इन सब बातों को एक तरह से माफ किया है और उन्होंने कहा कि हमको आगे बढ़ना होगा। लेकिन राहुल गांधी की जहाँ तक जो स्थिति है, जो उसके बारे में लोग जानते समझते हैं, राहुल गांधी इस बात को बहुत गंभीरता से ले रहे हैं। वो इसको किस तरह से लेते हैं, इसमें हमको एक बहुत माइन्यूट बात ये समझनी होगी कल CWC की बैठक में जब बैठक हुई तो ये लेटर लिखने वालों में 3 सदस्य CWC के थे और इन लोगों ने लेटर में जो बातें कही वो CWC की बैठक में भी उन्होंने उस गंभीरता से उस बात को नहीं उठाया। वजह ये थी कि जितने भी जो मुख्यमंत्री हैं, जितने भी प्रदेश अध्यक्ष हैं, सभी लोगों ने सोनिया गांधी और राहुल गांधी में अपना विश्वास जता दिया और आस्था जता दी। तो हमने जिस तरह से 1969 में एक दौर देखा था, एक वक्त देखा था, कांग्रेस का, और उसके बाद 1977 में जो दौर देखा था,
Yes.
उससे तकरीबन उसी तरह का दौर एक बढ़ता हुआ दिख रहा है। और ये बात जरूर है कि ये बात यहीं पर खत्म नहीं होने वाली। ये नेता कहीं ना कहीं कुछ न कुछ अपनी प्लानिंग कर रहे हैं, और अपने अगर जिस नेतृत्व उस पर सीरियस नहीं होता है, तो ये जरूर कोई ना कोई कदम उठाएगा।
Yes, definitely something is brewing, perhaps on both sides. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Watch the situation closely. For us, Ajay Vikram Singh, thank you for joining us for the time being. Okay, now moving on to other updates coming in from the country in National Prime. Well, 3 people have so far lost their lives as a 5-story building in Kajalpuri locality in Raigad district of Maharashtra's Mahad collapsed. Rescue operations have been underway at full swing. The incident took place last evening. Over 60 people have been rescued alive, while few are still feared to be trapped in the debris. 3 National Disaster Response Force teams are engaged in rescue and relief operations. The injured are being treated, while some have also been discharged. Those with serious injuries have been taken to Mumbai for advanced treatment. Around 50 families had been residing in the building, which was said to have been built around a decade ago. You can see the images of a child also being brought out alive, which happened just a few hours back this day itself.
ये हादसा दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है और इसमें कम से कम अभी 15 से 20 लोग यहाँ पर मलबे में दबे हुए हैं और एक की मौत हुई है, 7 से 8 जख्मी है। और निश्चित रूप से ये जो काम हुआ है इसमें बहुत ही लापरवाही बरती गई है। जो बिल्डर है उसने क्वालिटी काम नहीं किया है, इसलिए उसके ऊपर एफआईआर लॉन्च हुआ है और जो भी अधिकारियों ने अपने अधिकार में इसको बांधकाम परवानगी दी है, सीसी ओसी जो दी हुई है उसके ऊपर कड़ी कार्रवाई करने की सूचना भी मैंने दी हुई है।
We'll keep getting you updates on that rescue operation going on in Maharashtra's Mahad. Moving further on, President Ramnath Kovind and Prime Minister Modi have expressed grief over the Malad building collapse. The President has said in a tweet, and I quote, "The news of the building collapse at Mahad Raigad in Maharashtra and loss of lives is distressing. My thoughts and prayers are with the accident victims. I wish speedy recovery for the injured." Local authorities and NDRF teams are coordinating rescue and relief efforts. The Prime Minister also in a tweet said that he has been saddened by the incident and is praying for the injured to recover soon. He further said that local authorities and NDRF teams are at the site of the tragedy and are providing all possible assistance. As the Prime Minister expressing his feelings on this tragic incident that has taken place in Raigad in Maharashtra. The place, of course, is Mahad, where this building has collapsed, a 5-story building. The incident has happened last evening. Like we got you the latest right now, 3 people have died so far, but over 60, including children, have been brought out alive, which is a miracle in itself. Look at what the Home Minister has been saying. He said the collapse of a building in Raigad, Maharashtra is very tragic. He said that he's spoken to DG NDRF HQ to provide all possible assistance. Teams are on the way and will be assisting with the rescue efforts. He's also praying for everyone's safety. Let's quickly get you the latest from the ground. Yogesh Ito is joining us from there. Yogesh, what can you tell us about the stage at which this operation is right now? A lot of people, over 60 of them, have been brought out alive, but 3 lives have tragically also been lost.
Gautam, it's been around 18 hours since the operation started, joint operations by NDRF and also by the MIDC Fire Brigade, State Police, and different agencies are in fact working, trying their best to save the people. They are probably stuck in the debris. You can see the massive operation is still underway, and all the teams are just walking there. Around 10 ambulances are there just on standby to take any bodies that are found. And also let me give you a latest update that earlier we have been given to understand that the 3 people have died, but now latest update is 5 people have succumbed to their injuries and 5 people overall have died. Official figure I am sharing with you that 5 people have died so far. We have Mr. Shiv Kumar, who is the Assistant Commandant of NDRF. Sir, I would like to know from you that how much time it will take to conclude the wind up the entire operations, the way the operations have been launched by the NDRF.
Okay. First of all, I would like to tell you that yesterday itself in the evening we got an information that a 5-story building have been collapsed in Mahad area. Accordingly, our 3 teams have been rushed on the spot with all collapsed structure and search and rescue equipments. Once we reached here, we got the information that 8 persons have been rescued by locals or the agencies which were on that particular time, in which one was dead and 7 was alive. Once we reached here, we saw that fire brigade and MIDC and other NGOs are working here on the site, and you can see the rebels over there. So we have faced a few difficulties too because of rain and all, and now we have the latest figure that it's let me give you the latest figure right now. It's alive 1 child, that is male 1 child. His name is Muhammad Bangi, and then so far 4 dead have been recovered, in which 3 were male and one was female. This is
5 dead, I think.
Yeah, it's 5 dead right now. And as far as operation is concerned, it will take, we can't say right now because we will take all the safety precautions with other agencies too, so that maximum number of live victims can be recovered from the rebels. So it will take a little more time.
Sir, taking the climate into the account, we know the Raigad area, basically the predictions are about the rains are not very good. So do you have any other preparations? In fact, rains create some obstacle in the operations.
Yes, we have been prepared for any natural calamity. We can work in any circumstances. But however, I would like to share that yes, in fact, if weather will not in favor with us, then yes, it's quite. You can say that we will take more time on.
Sir, definitely NDRF is one of the premier agencies in India, especially. But talking about landslide and especially in these areas, so how do you see this calamity? Because it's a extremely congested building, so 5-story building, around 40 families were residing there. So how much difficult to carry out the operations and this
Yes, if we work in a congested environment, we cannot approach from many areas. If we find any building collapse where we have much more approachable areas, then we can work easily. Yes, it is quite. It's a good question that area and circumstances much influence the operation.
Right. Okay, last question. Also, we have used drones, we have used sniper dogs. What are the other equipment, latest equipment? Because recently we have seen that NDRF has using some latest equipments as far as some these kind of calamities happen. So, what are the latest equipments and how does it support to the operations?
Right. NDRF is working in each and every field, whether it's flood water or collapsed structure search and rescue, CBRN, and any other natural calamity. As far as this collapsed structure search and rescue operations is concerned, we have victim locating camera by which we can locate the victim if it has been trapped inside deep in the debris. And we have thermal sensors too, we have infrared cameras too, by which we can track the victims in not only in broad daylight, in night also.
Okay.
Apart from these equipments, we have basic cutters and all. So we have many modern equipments for locating the victims, so that we can we can recover more and more alive victims.
So Shiv Kumar, Assistant Commandant of NDRF, explaining that how the agencies are in fact working to find out the people who are stuck there, and they are very optimistic, they are very positively working to find out that the people who are stuck, they are with a positive sense, and that's the reason one of the miracle we have seen just a couple of minutes back when a child of around 3 or 4 years they found alive. So definitely the agency NDRF.
Yes, NDRF is among the best that we have when it comes to situations like these and these disasters, but the circumstances are quite trying and challenging, and which is why we've been told that the rescue operations might take a little longer. Still, people are feared to be trapped inside, and we hope that all those who are still trapped inside and are missing are brought out alive. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Yogesh Sheetal, and your guest as well. Now, Prime Minister Modi has expressed deep grief over the demise of Dome Raja of Varanasi, Jagdish Chaudhary. The PM in a tweet has further said Jagdish Chaudhary was a staunch believer of the rich culture of Kashi and was an active participant of the Sanatan tradition in Varanasi. The PM also remembered his works for social harmony. He prayed for peace to the departed soul and strength for his family to bear the loss. Let's quickly get you the latest on the flood situation in the country as well. Starting from Bihar, there is no significant change in the flood situation in the state. As many as 1,333 panchayats of 130 blocks in 16 districts are still facing the wrath of the floods. A total of over 83 lakh population is affected in these districts. 27 people have lost their lives in the current flood fury. According to Disaster Management Department, Muzaffarpur remains the most affected area, where 287 panchayats are still affected. In Darbhanga, 227 panchayats are impacted. Sitamarhi, East Champaran and Saran districts are other affected districts, where over 100 panchayats each are submerged in flood waters. 109 community kitchens are also being run in Darbhanga, from where over 93,000 people are getting cooked food. More than 10 lakh families have been provided ex-gratia relief of 6,000 rupees per family through DBT. According to the State Water Resource Department, the water discharge from Kosi and Gandak barrages has remained over 1.2 lakh cusecs. That was yesterday. The river Bagmati is still above the danger mark in Katonja, Benibad and Hayaghat. The river Buri Gandak is flowing above the danger mark in Rosra and Khagaria, while the river Ganga is flowing above the red mark in Gandhighat in Patna, Hathida and Kahalgaon. According to Met Office, heavy rains have taken place in the catchment areas of Bagmati and Adwara group of rivers in Nepal, and this may result in increase in the water levels in these rivers in Bihar further on as well. And heavy to very heavy rains have also lashed many parts of Gujarat for the last few days. The incessant rains have created flood-like situations in many districts of Saurashtra and North Gujarat. Following heavy to very heavy rainfall during the last 36 hours, most of the rivers in North, Central and Saurashtra region are in spate. A red alert has been sounded in areas along the banks of rivers. The rains have increased the inflow of water at the Machu Dam at Morbi in the state as well. Further, the IMD has predicted that widespread rainfall with isolated heavy to very heavy falls is very likely to take place over Odisha, Gangetic West Bengal and Jharkhand during the next 3 to 4 days, and over Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan from the 26th till the 28th of August. Let's in fact get you the latest situation from one of the affected states, that's Gujarat. Nishit is joining us from there. Nishit, what can you tell us about the prevailing situation, also in juxtaposition with the kind of forecast for the weather that is there for the next couple of days?
Gautam, if we talk about the prevailing situation in the state as far as rain is concerned, so till now Gujarat has received 107% rain, and just few minutes ago I received an update from weather department that the system, the low pressure system, rain system, which was supposed to get activated from Bay of Bengal, has diverted, and on 29th August, a new system will be activated. From there, the second round will start of rain. So nowadays, the intensity of rain has become lower, but as far as Saurashtra region is concerned, incessant rain has badly affected the life of the people, and as far as the farmers are concerned, the crops like groundnut, soybean are completely damaged.
Okay.
So nowadays the rescue operations are still going on in Morbi, and there is a flood-like situation in Rajkot, Morbi, Mehsana and Kutch. So in the morning also the NDRF team has rescued 30 people from the Halwat Taluka, of one of the villages of Halwat Taluka, and medical team is also accompanying the NDRF team because to avoid the menace of COVID-19 situation. Gautam.
Well, let's hope that these rescue operations go smoothly and the weather is kinder as well in the coming days as far as Gujarat and the other flood hit areas of the country are concerned. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Nishit. Now we've got some latest news coming in, which is of a big import as far as the security situation in the country is concerned, where the NIA has filed a 13,500-page charge sheet in the Pulwama terror attack case. Let's go across to my colleague Sudhakar for more on this. Sudhakar, what more can you tell us about this charge sheet? This is a case, an attack that had completely shaken up the nation. What does the charge sheet say?
कह सकते हैं पाकिस्तान जो भारत में लगातार आतंकी गतिविधियों को बढ़ाने के लिए काम कर रहा है, उसका एक भंडाफोड़ बड़ा खुलासा हुआ है और जो पूरी साजिश भारत के खिलाफ आतंकी साजिश लगातार रची जा रही है और पुलवामा हमला किस सुनियोजित तरीके से भारत में अशांति फैलाने के लिए प्लान किया गया था, उसके बारे में खुलासा किया गया। और सिर्फ खुलासा नहीं, उन आतंकवादियों के जिन्होंने इस हमले को अंजाम दिया, उनके आईडी बनाते वक्त की तस्वीरें, जो जिन चीजों का इस्तेमाल हुआ, जो मटेरियल एविडेंसेस हैं, टेक्निकल एविडेंसेस है, व्हाट्सएप चैट हो, मोबाइल फोन हो, किस तरह से पूरी एक साजिश रची गई। आईएसआई जो पाकिस्तान की खुफिया एजेंसी है और पाकिस्तान आईएसआई और पाकिस्तानी सेना की सरपरस्ती में चलने वाला जैश-ए-मोहम्मद संगठन, उसने किस तरह से यहाँ आतंकवादियों को ट्रेनिंग दिया इस हमले के लिए, ये सारी बातें इस चार्जशीट में है। बहुत बड़ी चार्जशीट है गौतम। जम्मू के एनआईए स्पेशल कोर्ट में ये चार्जशीट फाइल की गई है। करीब 13,500 पेजेस की ये चार्जशीट है। तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि किस विस्तार से, कितनी तफसील से, तमाम सबूतों को जुटाते हुए इसकी पूरी जांच की गई है इस पूरे मामले की। पिछले साल ये घटना 14 फरवरी को हुई थी, जिसमें हमारे सीआरपीएफ के 40 जवान शहीद हुए थे। और उस घटना के बाद हमने देखा कि किस तरह से भारत ने इस आतंकी हमले का बदला भी लिया था पाकिस्तान में के खिलाफ एयर स्ट्राइक करके, और एक तरह से आतंकी ठिकानों को जो नष्ट किया गया था, तो भारत की एक मजबूत इच्छा शक्ति भी दिखी थी। लेकिन अब वो तमाम सबूत वो दुनिया के सामने आज उजागर होंगे। पाकिस्तान ने किस तरह से इस पूरी आतंकी साजिश को रचा। करीब 20 लोगों के खिलाफ गौतम ये पूरी चार्जशीट है। और हमको पता है कि जैश-ए-मोहम्मद ने इस पूरी घटना को प्लानिंग किया था आईएसआई के साथ मिलकर। तो ये पूरी जानकारी है मौलाना मसूद अजहर, उसका भाई असगर राउफ, मौलाना अम्मार, और इसके अलावा कई लोगों के इस घटनाक्रम में, हालांकि कई लोग मुठभेड़ में मारे भी गए हैं, उनके भी नाम दर्ज है। 7 लोग अभी एनआईए की गिरफ्त में हैं। तो एक तरह से कह सकते हैं एक बहुत बड़ी साजिश का आतंकी वारदातों को अंजाम देने के लिए किस तरह से भारत में लगातार पाकिस्तान कोशिश कर रहा है।
Well, certainly that is something that has been put across earlier as well, but now it's in a documented form with a lot of evidence also being cited. Sudhakar, let's hope that this matter is taken further along to ensure that all the culprits behind this conspiracy that led to the martyrdom of 40 of our Jawans is completely unearthed and people are made accountable for their dastardly actions. Thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Now, along with the identity of being the cold desert of the Himalayas, the beautiful handloom, especially the Pashmina shawl, used to be the identity of Ladakh for years. But the enthusiasm among people of tribal areas here was declining due to the lack of opportunities. After the formation of the Union Territory, the financial support extended by the central government has reinvigorated the Pashmina business in Ladakh. And it's time now to turn to all the updates from the business world in Midday Prime.
Production.
And with all the business and economy updates, we've got Shubhendu with us.
Welcome to Business Prime. BSE benchmark Sensex advanced over 200 points in early trade on Tuesday, tracking gains in financial stocks amid largely positive trend in the global markets. BSE Sensex was trading 157 points higher at 38,956, while NSE Nifty was up 46.70 points, up at 11,513. IndusInd Bank was the top gainer in the Sensex pack, followed by SBI, Bajaj Finance, Bajaj Finserv, Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, HDFC M&M and Maruti. The rupee surged 15 paise to 74.17 against the US dollar in the opening trade on Tuesday, tracking positive domestic equities and weak American currency. Meanwhile, global oil benchmark Brent crude was trading 0.22% higher at US dollar 45.74 per barrel. And Reserve Bank of India (RBI) has said it will conduct simultaneous purchase and sale of government securities under open market operations (OMO) for an aggregate amount of rupees 20,000 crores in 2 tranches. The auction will be held in 2 tranches of rupees 10,000 crore each, will be conducted on August 27th and September 3rd. The central bank said it would be selling 4 securities totaling rupees 10,000 crore and it will be purchasing 4 securities of the same amount. RBI further said it will continue to monitor evolving liquidity and market conditions and take measures as appropriate to ensure orderly functioning of financial markets. Those are the updates from Business Prime. Gautam, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Shubhendu, for joining us. And now let's get you what's happening around the world as well. In fact, we're completely out of time. That's all we have time for at the moment in Midday Prime. For all the latest, stay tuned to DD News and DD India.